The Monday film is based on a Neil Simon play about two vaudeville comedians brought back together after many years for a television show. However, as they work, all the old animosities and disagreements return. Walter Matthau and George Burns are the Sunshine Boys on Monday at 9:25. There are high-powered intrigues in Dynasty, here on BBC1 in 15 minutes. First, the news with Jan Leeming and sport with Michael Blakey. The time, 10 minutes to 9.
With just over 3 hours to the train drivers' strike, there's no sign of any last-minute breakthrough. The submarine that sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano comes home to the Clyde.
Martina Navratilova picks up 2 Wimbledon trophies and an extra $500,000. And how Argentina's football fans at home saw their team knocked out of the World Cup.
With 3 hours left, there appears to be no hope at all tonight of preventing the indefinite strike by train drivers. Although both sides have been at their desks, there have been no meetings today. And so it seems that come midnight, the railways will virtually be halted. Ian Webster reports.
It's been a day of limited activity at the British Rail Board's London headquarters. With talks broken down between the two sides and no meetings planned through ACAS, British Rail's managers have been hearing from Industrial Relations Director Clifford Rose how to cope with the ASLEF strike. The new rosters, which have sparked the walkout, come into effect tomorrow. ASLEF's executive is committed to opposing them and today accused BR of engineering the strike to crush the union. But Clifford Rose believes there'll be no quick end to the dispute.
Let there be no doubt, we recognise the strong feelings of the drivers down the line, and we don't expect a massive revolution in the early days, but we believe that the strong feelings that they have could have been and should have been assuaged by constructive advice from their leadership. I think they could have helped them to understand the benefits of flexible rostering rather than the way they have put it, which has been to decry it, to rubbish it, and to attack it negatively instead of trying to work positively.
Surely the public of this country must be realising something more serious than just a little flexible rostering is wrong in our industry. It must be something more serious, and so I'm wondering if they've just basically lost control. It's a pity that this has happened, but there's still a few hours to go, and I still say to the public that that proposal of ours still stands, which Mr. Pat Lowry of ACAS understood and accepted, which Mr. Len Murray accepted, which everybody seems to be, anybody with reasonable thoughts in their head are accepting, except British Railways Board.
While passengers queue for the few remaining services tonight, the possibility of the strike being called off has all but disappeared. Most trains around the country will have been withdrawn before midnight to be laid up for the foreseeable future.
The opposition leader, Mr. Michael Foot, has warned that a prolonged rail strike would be a disaster for the nation. Mr. Foot told a party rally in Wales the government should recognise its responsibility in matters of this kind. The Prime Minister told a rally of Conservatives in Cheltenham Britain needed the Falklands spirit in peace as well as in war. She hoped the train drivers would show it and prove their leaders weren't in tune with the new mood.
And today we appeal to every train driver to put his family, his comrades and his country first by continuing to work tomorrow. That would be the true solidarity which can save jobs and which stands in the proud tradition of British railwaymen.
The British hunter-killer submarine that sank the Argentine cruiser, the General Belgrano, during the Falklands War, has arrived back at Faslane on the Clyde. HMS Conqueror fired 2 Tigerfish torpedoes after shadowing the Belgrano for several days. Michael Cole reports.
It was a homecoming tinged with lingering controversy. The Ministry of Defence had always declined to confirm that it was Conqueror which sank the Argentine cruiser. But here was the evidence. A scull and crossed torpedoes fluttering over the conning tower with the profile of Belgrano displayed. the first time this World War II tradition has been revived by the nuclear navy. The sinking of the cruiser came immediately before the loss of HMS Sheffield. At that time, it was regarded by some as the attack which lost Britain the propaganda war, because it had been outside the total exclusion zone. But that wasn't how Conqueror's captain sees it.
I will admit that proudly that we sank the Belgrano. She was outside the TZ, as you rightly say, and I was under direct orders from Sink Fleet, and they were confirmed by me before I went in for my attack. She was a threat to the task force. She'd been steaming towards them, and I'd been watching her for a few hours beforehand, and under direct orders I went in and attacked her. I think by doing so, although there was obviously loss of life on her, which I regret, I certainly saved considerable loss of life from the British task force.
It had been a busy war for Conqueror. Besides the Belgrano, it took part in a commando operation which is still secret. But now, after 90 days at sea, the war started to recede a little, and for the crew, other considerations became suddenly very important indeed.
In North Yorkshire, more than 100 police, most of them armed, are concentrating their search for a man suspected of 3 murders around the village of Low Hutton near Malton. The police are warning the public to stay well clear of the area. They believe the man they're looking for, Barry Prudhomme, is probably cold and wet and at his most dangerous. This report from Nicholas Witchell.
Yesterday's sighting of a man near the village of Low Hutton remains the best lead the police have had in the last few days. This morning, the tracking expert Eddie McGee joined police search teams in the village. First, with a police marksman at his elbow, Mr. McGee began the painstaking process of scouring the fields for any sign of a trail. All the time, helicopters hovered overhead in the hope of panicking the wanted man into breaking cover, but to no avail. The search for clues then moved to a local goat, after its owner reported that she'd been milked by some unknown person. Mr. McGee spent some time examining the ground around the goat's pen for any tracks that may have been left.
Is Mr. McGee making any progress?
Yes, that's Mr. McGee, that.
Yeah, but you think you may have a trail here, do you?
Well, he's always on the trail.
But he's looking now for clues.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything positive at all? Any definite signs?
Well, he may have. He doesn't take it into his confidence.
Police remain confident. It may take some time, but in the end, they say, they will catch up with the wanted man.
Reports from Lebanon say there have been artillery exchanges between Israelis and Palestinians across the Green Line, which separates East and West Beirut. Earlier today, Israeli troops stopped supplies and food from crossing into the mainly Muslim East sector, where 6,000 PLO guerrillas are trapped. They're now digging in and have said they won't leave without a fight. Civilians are still being allowed to cross to the relative safety of West Beirut, leaving the PLO still more isolated. Our correspondent says the increasing pressure from the Israelis is a warning to those looking for a political solution that they don't have much longer to find one. The Sri Lankan hijacker who held an Italian jet at Bangkok airport is going to be extradited to Italy. Sepala Ekanyake released the hostages after he'd got a ransom of $300,000 and had his wife and child sent to him from Italy. The official report into the fire at a disco in Dublin last year, in which 48 young people died, is expected to find it was started deliberately. The report, out on Monday, is expected to reveal that during the disco at the Stardust Club on St. Valentine's Day, an unknown person probably slashed a seat in the club before setting it alight with a match, cigarette or burning newspaper. The authorities are also criticised in the report, which apparently backs evidence that some of the exit doors were chained or blocked to prevent gate crashes. The Japanese motor company Nissan says its plans for a new Datsun car factory in Britain have been temporarily shelved. 8 possible sites were considered for the plant, which was to provide 5,000 jobs. A final decision will be made later this month. Now with news of today's sport, starting with the ladies' singles finals at Wimbledon, here's Michael Blakey.
Martina Navratilova won the singles title for the 3rd time this afternoon when she defeated